As a marine biologist specializing in large oceanic predators, I had dedicated my life to studying the most impressive creatures of the seas. When I received the invitation to lead the behavioral observation team on the Neptune expedition, I immediately knew I was facing the opportunity I had always waited for. This was not just another research trip. It was a chance to document great white sharks in their natural habitat at depths never before reached by human observers. The Neptune was a state-of-the-art research vessel, specifically equipped for our project. 2 years of planning, funding, and technological development had brought us here. 3 days of sailing off the Chilean coast, in waters known to harbor some of the largest great white sharks ever recorded. Our team was small, but extraordinary. Marco, a deep diving specialist and the official expedition leader. Elena, an oceanographer with unparalleled knowledge of abyssal predator behavior. John, a cinematographer who had documented the most dangerous maritime expeditions of the past decade, and 2 additional experts in telemetry and marine biology. The morning of the dive started like any other. The sky was clear, the sea had a gentle swell, and all equipment was functioning perfectly. I checked my sensors for the 3rd time while sipping coffee on deck. The observation cage rested on the launch platform, a marvel of engineering that had consumed half of our budget. Unlike conventional cages used for shallow water observations, ours was an underwater titanium fortress, designed to withstand the immense pressure of the depths and the potential attacks of curious predators. Paul, everything ready for the dive? Marco approached, his meticulous gaze inspecting every detail of the cage. He personally checked every weld, every bolt, just as he had done every day since we embarked. Yes, sensors are calibrated and cameras are ready to record, I replied, adjusting the final details of my equipment. The data transmitters are working perfectly. We're going to capture everything in real time. In the control room, Elena was studying charts displaying ocean currents and sonar activity. He's still there, she announced as we entered. The 7-meter male hasn't moved from the giant squid area. For weeks we had been tracking this exceptional specimen. Our monitoring buoys recorded its movements, revealing unusual hunting behavior for a great white shark. It remained at much greater depths than usual, surfacing rarely and without the predictable patterns seen in other studied sharks. This mystery was precisely what drove us. Remember, Elena said while double-checking the communication systems, below 400 meters, we are in truly unexplored territory for direct observation. This is pioneering science. Maintain constant communication and strictly follow protocol. We suited up in our specialized pressurized gear, designed to provide mobility while protecting us from extreme conditions. They weren't exactly comfortable, but they were our only chance of survival if anything went wrong with the cage. Our oxygen tanks had a 6-hour capacity. We planned to stay submerged for only 4. We entered the cage in the predetermined order. I went first, Marco right behind me, and John last, carrying the high-definition, pressure-resistant filming equipment. The other 3 team members took their positions in the control room, monitoring every aspect of the mission. The Neptune's winch operated with impressive smoothness for something so powerful. Our cage was lifted from the platform and slowly lowered into the ocean's surface. The first contact with the water always caused a slight jolt. We felt that familiar sensation as the cage adjusted to its buoyancy. Then, we began our descent. The first 100 meters were the most vibrant. The sunlight penetrated the crystal-clear water, creating dancing beams that illuminated small schools of curious fish. We could see clearly in all directions, without artificial lighting. 150 meters, Elena announced. Water temperature is dropping as expected. Visibility is still excellent. At around 200 meters, we turned on our lights. The change was dramatic. The vibrant blue gradually faded into a deep, dark blue, then into near-total darkness, pierced only by our powerful LED lights. Bioluminescent creatures occasionally crossed our field of vision. Translucent jellyfish, small crustaceans, and lanternfish that looked like living stars swimming through the darkness. 300 meters. Elena's voice remained calm and professional. Sensors are detecting significant movement in the southern quadrant. It's probably our friend. Marco adjusted our tracking systems while I positioned the external cameras. John prepared his equipment to capture what would be a historic moment for marine science, the first documented observation of a great white shark at such a depth. "I'm registering changes in salinity and temperature," I noted, observing the data on my internal panel. "Exactly as predicted, in the giant squid feeding zone. 400 meters, Elena announced. "You've just surpassed the maximum depth of any previous great white shark observation in its natural habitat. Congratulations, we're making history." At 500 meters, the sensors detected its final approach. Large mass moving 200 meters away, constant speed of 5 knots, intercepting direction. Elena's voice now carried a hint of restrained excitement. "Sensors confirm. It's our 7-meter male." John activated the additional external cameras while Marco adjusted the lights to cover a larger perimeter. My job was to document every aspect of its behavior, every movement, every reaction to our presence. "Ready? He's approaching from the southwest flank." Marco pointed toward the darkness beyond our light's reach. Then it emerged. At first, just a pale, ghostly shape on the periphery of our vision. Then, as it entered the circle of light, it revealed itself in all its evolutionary majesty, nearly 7 meters of perfectly adapted predator, the result of millions of years of evolution. Its skin was not white as many imagine, but a blue-gray on the upper side that faded into a pearlescent white on the ventral region. Old scars marked its robust body, testaments to battles with giant squids and other predators. "I'm recording active investigative behavior," I whispered into the microphone, feeling my heart race with pure scientific excitement. "Look at how it approaches the cage. There's none of the attack patterns we observe in shallow waters." The shark circled our cage with curiosity. Its black eyes, often described as dead or lifeless in sensationalist documentaries, actually displayed sharp perception and analysis. It approached cautiously, then pulled back, only to come closer again from another angle. For nearly 20 minutes, this underwater apparition continued. The predator seemed to lose interest at times, retreating into the darkness, only to return with a new approach, growing more confident each time. We managed to capture data on its breathing frequency, swimming patterns, and even pupil dilation in response to different light intensities. "We're recording something unprecedented," Marco declared. "This specific deepwater behavior has never been documented before. It could indicate a completely different hunting strategy in abyssal environments." Elena chimed in over the communication system. "The data we're receiving up here is extraordinary. Its heart rate telemetry shows energy conservation adaptations that contradict what we thought we knew about the metabolism of large sharks." It was the pinnacle of my career as a marine biologist, witnessing behavior never before recorded, realizing that we were rewriting what was known about these magnificent animals, knowing that after this day, textbooks would have to be updated with our discoveries. The great white shark, so feared and misunderstood, revealed itself as a creature of remarkable behavioral complexity, perfectly adapted to the uncharted depths. I imagined the scientific publications, the lectures, the advancement in knowledge that would come from this single expedition. And then, everything changed. The great white shark's behavior changed abruptly. Its swimming turned into erratic, almost frantic movements. The pectoral fins, once stable and controlled, now moved at sharp angles, as if the animal were trying to change direction quickly. "Something's wrong," John murmured, adjusting the lights to expand our field of vision. He rotated the external cameras, trying to capture whatever might have caused this sudden change in the predator's behavior. The sensors embedded in my panel began recording physiological changes in the shark. Its heart rate spiked drastically, and its breathing pattern showed clear signs of acute stress. It was as if the animal, an apex predator that fears almost nothing in its environment, was suddenly terrified. "Are you seeing this?" I asked, adjusting the sensors for better readings. "It's displaying all the physiological indicators of an extreme threat response." "We're detecting low-frequency vibrations in the water," Elena interrupted over the communicator. Her voice, usually calm and methodical, had a different tone now. "The hydrophones are picking up something unusual." I tried to maintain scientific objectivity, but something felt off about the situation. Great white sharks are apex predators. They don't show fear without reason. That 7-meter specimen, a perfectly evolved hunting machine, was acting like cornered prey. "We're detecting a large mass object moving below you." Elena's voice sounded tense over the communicator. "Very large, and fast. It doesn't match any profile in our database." And then I felt it. Before I even saw it, I felt its presence. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the water's temperature. The cage lights suddenly seemed inadequate, too weak to penetrate the absolute darkness surrounding us. The great white shark, the apex predator that so many fear, was now swimming frantically in increasingly tight circles, like a trapped animal. "The sensors are going crazy," Marco said. "Whatever this is, it's massive, much bigger than anything cataloged in this region." The vibrations in the water became perceptible even inside our reinforced cage. A rhythmic pulse, almost like a giant heartbeat, reverberated through the metal. Our own instruments began experiencing interference. "Paul," John pointed downward, where the darkness seemed denser, more impenetrable. From the depths below, the impossible emerged. At first, I thought it was a visual anomaly, perhaps a shadow cast by our own equipment, or an illusion created by water distortion and extreme pressure. Our scientific minds desperately searched for rational explanations. But when the lights illuminated that gigantic form, rising from the abyss like a materialized nightmare, all rationality seemed to dissolve. What I saw defied not only my scientific knowledge, but the very understanding of the natural world as we know it. An elongated reptilian snout, lined with rows of conical, jagged teeth. Ancient, predatory eyes, larger than dinner plates, not the vacant eyes of a fish, but intelligent, calculating, with vertical pupils that constricted when exposed to our light. And a body that seemed endless, scaly, muscular, with fins that resembled bony wings and tough membranes. Its skin bore a mottled pattern of gray and green, providing perfect camouflage in the depths. "My God," Marco's voice faltered. He, who had faced oceanic storms and all kinds of predators over 20 years of career, was now visibly shaking. "It's a MOSASAURUS!" "Impossible!" The word escaped my lips automatically, a defensive response from a scientific mind confronted with the unthinkable. MOSASAURUS, giant marine reptiles from the Varanidae family, distant relatives of modern Komodo dragons, extinct for 66 million years, wiped out in the same catastrophic event that eliminated the dinosaurs. Creatures we knew only from fossils, from imprints in stone, from speculative museum reconstructions. And yet, there it was, a prehistoric leviathan, an aberration that defied everything we knew about evolution and survival. An animal that, according to all established scientific knowledge, should not exist. "This is impossible," I repeated, unable to fully process what I was seeing. No lineage of marine reptiles could have survived this long without detection. "Evolutionary debates later," Elena's voice cut through my thoughts. "We need to get you out of there, now." The great white shark, our 7-meter giant that moments ago had seemed the epitome of predatory perfection, now looked like nothing more than a mere snack before this ancient monstrosity. In its panic, the poor animal made the fatal mistake of swimming too close to the MOSASAURUS. In a movement surprisingly fast for something so large, the prehistoric reptile lunged. Its jaws opened like a tooth-filled abyss, revealing a dark pink throat capable of swallowing a human whole. In an instant, too fast even for our high-speed cameras to fully capture, the shark was torn in half, as if made of paper. Blood clouded our vision momentarily, a crimson cloud expanding in the water around us. Our external sensors registered a slight temperature increase, the warmth of the spilled blood contrasting with the icy depths. "Ascend! Ascend now!" I shouted into the communicator, all scientific decorum abandoned in the face of sheer survival. "The winch is at full speed," Elena replied, panic evident in her voice. "Hold on." Our cage began to rise, but at an agonizingly slow pace. The monster, having devoured half the shark in mere seconds, now turned its attention to the remaining half, sinking slowly. With an agile twist of its massive body, It swallowed the rest of its prey, and then turned to us. I felt like an insect caught in a web, watching the approach of the spider. Nothing in my scientific training, nothing in 20 years of studying marine predators had prepared me for the primal terror I felt in that moment. "It's coming closer," John whispered, his camera trembling visibly in his hands. I've never seen anything move like this. Something so big and so fast. "Keep filming," I ordered, surprising even myself with my ability to still think like a scientist in the face of horror. If we don't survive, someone needs to know. The MOSASAURUS circled our cage, its massive body making increasingly tighter loops, exactly like a modern predator stalking its prey. There was a horrifying intelligence in its movements, a calculated strategy honed by millions of years of predatory evolution. "Size estimate," Marco spoke into his personal recorder, his voice shaky but determined. "At least 15 meters, possibly more. Estimated mass over 20 tons. Even in the face of imminent death, the scientist in him was trying to document. The first impact nearly shattered the cage. The MOSASAURUS struck it laterally, not with its jaws, but with its massive body, sending us into a wild spin. We were thrown against the inner walls of the structure. John hit his head on the control panel and began bleeding. Marco desperately tried to stabilize our position. "The cable is damaged," Elena's distant voice informed us. "We've lost 40% of structural integrity. We're attempting an emergency procedure." "Activate emergency ballasts," Marco yelled into the communicator. "Try pulling us up with the secondary cable." The second attack was direct. Those prehistoric jaws clamped onto the cage bars, twisting the metal as if it were paper. The lights flickered, some going out completely. Between attacks on our cage, the MOSASAURUS began rising toward the surface, seemingly drawn to the activity above. The cage continued to ascend slowly, the emergency winch struggling to save us. At 200 meters from the surface, I caught sight of the belly of our ship and the horror unfolding above. The MOSASAURUS alternated between attacking our cage and charging at the Neptune. Its massive body slammed against the hull repeatedly in a coordinated frenzy of destruction. Marco had taken manual control of the emergency flotation system, trying to propel us to the surface using the compressed air tanks installed in the cage's structure. John, despite his head injury, continued filming methodically, capturing what would be, if we survived, the most important zoological discovery in a century. We managed to ascend another 50 meters when the worst happened. With a thunderous crack that reverberated through the water like a shockwave, I watched the Neptune break apart. The bow and stern split at an impossible angle, as an internal explosion sent debris flying in all directions. The screams over the communicator abruptly ceased, replaced by a constant static hum. Our last connection to the surface, to the rest of humanity, was severed. Our cage, now hanging by just a thread of the main cable, swung like a pendulum. Below us, the MOSASAURUS feasted on the wreckage and bodies slowly sinking into the depths. The scene was surreal, apocalyptic, like witnessing an ecosystem lost in time, a world where humans were nothing more than fragile, insignificant prey. John had dropped the camera, his pale face frozen in horror at the sight of the monster devouring our colleagues. Marco struggled with the emergency controls, but his movements had lost their urgency. There was a resignation in his gestures. But something inside me refused to accept that ending. Maybe it was a basic survival instinct, or maybe the desire to let the world know what we had discovered. That the ocean held secrets deeper and more terrifying than we had ever imagined. "We still have the emergency flotation system," I said, fighting against the water that had begun seeping into the cage through structural fissures. "If we completely release the ballast and activate all the compressed air tanks simultaneously..." Marco stared at me for a moment, a spark of hope rekindling in his exhausted eyes. "We could create enough thrust to reach the surface," he completed my thought. "But the system was designed for gradual use. If we release everything at once, the cage might not withstand the pressure," I concluded. "But it's our only chance." John, still semi-conscious from the blow to his head, mumbled something about the recording equipment. Even on the brink of death, His concern was for the scientific record of what we had witnessed. "I'll save it," I promised, retrieving the camera that floated inside the flooded cage. I stored it in the waterproof compartment of my pressurized suit. "Your story will be told." At that moment, the MOSASAURUS seemed to finish feasting on the wreckage of the Neptune. The creature began swimming toward us. There was something deliberate, calculated in its approach. Not the frantic charge of a starving predator, but the methodical advance of an intelligent hunter finishing its task. "Now or never," Marco said, positioning himself at the emergency control panel. Our eyes met for a second. A silent exchange between scientists, between colleagues, between friends who knew they were about to die. No words were necessary. He activated the emergency system, simultaneously releasing all the ballast and compressed air stored in the external tanks. The effect was immediate and violent. The damaged cage shot upward like an underwater missile. The acceleration threw us against the floor, the metal protesting with alarming noises as we ascended at a speed the structure was never designed to endure. Through the observation windows, I saw the MOSASAURUS launch itself after us, its speed unbelievable for an animal so large. It gained ground with every second. The pressure inside the cage shifted drastically with our rapid ascent, causing excruciating pain in my ears and sinuses. At 100 meters from the surface, I heard the first significant metallic crack. One of the cage's sidewalls began to buckle, the metal twisting inward. Water gushed in forcefully. "Put on the emergency suits," I shouted, struggling to reach the compartment where we stored individual survival gear. Marco had managed to partially suit up when the second impact came. The MOSASAURUS had caught up with us and clamped its powerful jaws around the base of the cage. The entire structure shook violently. I saw John slammed against the observation window, which shattered on impact. His body was instantly sucked out, vanishing into the blue abyss. At that moment, I felt the final blow. The MOSASAURUS, with a violent twist of its muscular body, completely tore away the bottom of the cage. Our ascent speed dropped immediately, and water flooded the compartment in an unrelenting torrent. I saw Marco struck by a metal panel that had detached from the structure, his body floating lifelessly. The last thing I saw before our cage disintegrated completely was that ancient maw opening again to receive us. An abyss of teeth and death that seemed to swallow not just our bodies, but all of humanity's arrogance in thinking we had conquered and understood the Earth's oceans. I don't know exactly how I survived. The cage shattered into dozens of fragments, and I was thrown clear by the explosion of the last compressed air tank. My emergency suit, though only partially worn, kept me alive. The automatic inflation system carried me to the surface while the Predator was still occupied with the remains of the cage, my colleagues, and the wreckage of the Neptune. I emerged into an ocean that seemed deceptively peaceful. The afternoon sun glistened over gentle waves. No trace remained of the horrors lurking below. If not for the taste of blood in my mouth and the warning alerts flashing on my damaged suit, I might have thought it was all just a nightmare. A self-inflating emergency raft drifted a few meters away, likely ejected automatically when the Neptune was destroyed. With the last of my strength, I swam toward it and managed to pull myself aboard. The movement sent sharp pain through my body. I realized several ribs were broken, and a deep gash in my leg was bleeding heavily. Using the raft's emergency medical kit, I managed to stop the bleeding and apply a makeshift bandage. I desperately searched for a radio, a flare, any means of communication. The raft had a small emergency transmitter, but when I activated it, no signal confirmation came. The panel was broken, likely damaged during the automatic ejection. Hours turned into a day, then two. I rationed the few emergency supplies in the raft, some energy bars, and 2 bottles of water. The scorching sun by day and the biting cold at night made survival even harder. My injuries throbbed constantly, and I feared infection. But the worst part wasn't the physical pain or the growing thirst. It was the absolute solitude under an endless sky, surrounded by an ocean I now knew hid monsters. With every movement in the water around the raft, my heart pounded in panic. Every shadow in the depths made me imagine the MOSASAURUS emerging to finish the job. In moments of clarity between feverish delirium, I tried to make sense of what we had discovered. How could a prehistoric marine reptile have survived the extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs? Had they evolved over 66 million years, adapting to changes in the marine environment? What other supposedly extinct creatures might be hiding in the unexplored parts of our planet? John's camera, secured in the waterproof compartment of my suit, held the only evidence of what we had witnessed. Occasionally, I checked to make sure it was still intact, clinging to the hope that, if I survived, I could show the world the truth. By the dawn of the third day, my situation had become critical. My last drop of drinking water was gone, and dehydration was advancing rapidly. My lips were cracked, my tongue swollen. My wounds showed signs of infection. Red lines stretched from the leg injury toward my torso. The horizon remained stubbornly empty of ships or aircraft. We had been on a research route rarely traveled, and our mission plan didn't require contact with the base for at least 2 more days. By the time they realized we were missing, it would be too late. The real horror is knowing that, if by some miracle I am rescued, no one will believe what I witnessed. With no other surviving team members to corroborate my account, with only a video that could easily be dismissed as a hoax, my discovery will be ridiculed by the scientific community. They'll say I suffered hallucinations from improper decompression, that I made up a fantastic story to explain a terrible accident with mundane causes, that I sought fame through pseudoscientific sensationalism. And while humanity continues to explore the oceans, believing it knows their secrets and masters their mysteries, the true lords of the depths wait patiently. Creatures that have survived sudden, violent, and world-altering events, beings that adapted and evolved in the abyssal darkness, while humans were still insignificant little mammals hiding from dinosaurs. The sun is setting on the horizon. I feel my strength fading like the light. I don't know if I will see the dawn. I leave this record in the hope that, if found, it may serve as a warning to those who come after me. The ocean was never ours. It never will be. We are merely temporary visitors in an ancient and unforgiving realm, where creatures we once considered legends or fossils still swim in the depths, watching our civilization with eyes that have witnessed the birth and death of entire eras. And they are waiting for us to venture deeper, waiting for our pride and curiosity to push us beyond the limits of safety, waiting to remind us of our true place on this blue planet.